Okay. Thank you very much for bearing with us.
We adjust the video.
Oh. Can you hear me, Puan Shereen?
Loud and clear. Terima kasih. Dia dengar I tak?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you. We cannot wait any longer. Let's go proceed.
So shall we proceed? I will continue. So for the 5D in the healthcare industry forum, we are delighted to have a list of accomplished senior managers, industry players and entrepreneurs to contribute to the discussion. So with us today as panelists are Ms. Nazrin Shahnaz Pierre Muhammad, the CEO of Shahnaz Healthcare Insurance Number Berhad, Mr. G. Saravanan, the Group Chief Information Officer of Thomson Hospital Kota Damansara, Madam Shirin Azli, a consultant from VMASH Healthcare, Mr. Muhammad Ridwan Abu Bakar, a Business Development Manager from First Ambulance Service in Berhad, Dr. Haizan Muhammad Yusof, the CEO of Technologies in Berhad, and last but not least, Mr. Zulkifli Haji Ahmad, the General Manager of OSA Technologies in Berhad. All right, let's have the panelists introduce themselves and their companies to start the ball rolling. So beginning with Ms. Nazrin Shahnaz, the floor is yours.
Hi, Assalamualaikum and very good morning. I'm Nazrin Shahnaz from Shahnaz Interiors in Berhad. We are the interior designers for hospitals and clinics, both government and private in Malaysia. The past experience that I have is Hospital Pendang, Hospital Baling, Hospital Cyberjaya, KPJ Manjung, Salgit Rawang, and few other more. So being in interior design, it has already evolved into multifaceted industry where it is not just about creating aesthetically pleasing environment. It is also about incorporating technologies and being at the front of it because our end goal is to provide greater patient experience. For the past 2 years, I've seen that healthcare industry is moving so fast that I feel we must consolidate all our expertise in order for us to respond and react to it more effectively in timely manner. So that's it from me.
Thank you. So shall we, Mr. G. Saravanan?
Hi, I'm Mr. Saravanan. You can call me G. For today morning, I represent Thomson Hospital, Kota Damansara. Something personally for my side, I've been in the hospital information system industry for more than 20 years. So that's quite some time. Reason I came back from Qatar after experiencing 5 years in Qatar, Middle East. So in Thomson is about close to 20 years old. We have been through many mergers and takeovers, and finally we are known as Thomson Hospital Group. We are not just hospital, we also have pharmacy chain, we also have IVF medical centers in the country, about 6 of them, and we are growing. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. G. You may continue, Madam Shirin, to introduce yourself and company.
Yeah, Assalamualaikum. Very good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Today, I'm representing VMASH Healthcare. I'm actually an independent consultant, and we are part of VMASH in terms of collaboration. So under VMASH, we have all the how would I say the senior experts in healthcare, and our main activities are actually in healthcare consulting and facilitation services. So we actually cover consulting from healthcare transformation. We look into pharmaceutical. We also have operations in medical tourism, in consulting medical tourism, etc. So, and also running hospitals and setting up patient experience, accreditation. So that's the whole breadth of healthcare solutions that we do. But what's interesting is that we also have done a little bit of work when it comes to adapting to 5G technologies in different countries. VMASH Healthcare has offices in 5 countries. So the headquarters is in Dubai. We have offices in Chicago, in Egypt. in Panama and also in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur. So I'm heading the Kuala Lumpur office, and I also head the APAC region. And the work that we have done in 5G is, interestingly, would be, in the basic of things that we do are in asset tagging, for example. We also done RFID mapping for about 100,000 biomedical assets for a group in UAE. We've also done manpower optimization, digital workflow creation, etc., to adapt to 5G for the key regulators in Dubai, for example. And we also have other projects related to 5G in the pipeline. So maybe this is where we can contribute today when it comes to the manpower planning, and also perhaps how we can expedite the deployment in 5G. Personally, I was with Telecom Malaysia for about 16 years. So, there's a telecommunication technology, and, I have many colleagues even in MCMC, ex-colleagues in MCMC. So that's my background. And then somehow I evolved into healthcare. So I hope I can contribute in the session today. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Shirin. So next, I would like to invite Dr. Haizan from OSA Technology. Mr. Zulkifli, is it okay?
Assalamualaikum, selamat pagi semua. Nama saya Zulkifli bin Haji Ahmad. Saya mewakili Dr. Haizan Muhammad Yusof selaku CEO OSA Teknologi Sdn Bhd. OSA Teknologi Sdn Bhd ditubuhkan pada 2004. Kalau tuan-tuan masih ingat, tuan-puan masih ingat, 2004 tu relate kita kepada tsunami. Okay, so that's the main reason kenapa our founder Dr. Haizan menubuhkan OSA Teknologi Sdn Bhd. Kerana dia masa tu dia adalah seorang yang dipanggil untuk buat kerja-kerja amal di Aceh masa tu. So masa tu dia orang ada difficulty untuk dapatkan all the implants. That's why bila dia balik ke sini dan dia terfikir in our region tu ada lebih kurang dalam 600 juta population, tapi tak ada satu pun company ataupun syarikat yang boleh supply melainkan multinational. So dia terfikir dan dia membangunkan OSA Teknologi Sdn Bhd pada masa tu. So kita dah start manufacturing our own product since 2007 sampai sekarang. That's all for OSA Teknologi.
So thank you to all the panelists for sharing your background with us.
Mr. Ridwan is online.
Okay, so first, sorry, Mr. Ridwan, I can't hear your voice. Okay.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Sorry, I cannot be attentive online today. Really hope I was there to meet everyone.
Okay, so I would like to invite Mr. Ridwan to introduce yourself first and your company.
Hi, sure. Thank you, Dr. Aminatul, right?
Yes.
Oh, this is Simon. I see. You never had a chance to meet anyone yet. So I'm Ridwan, the Business Development Manager here at First Ambulance Services. We are based in Petaling Jaya, but we operate from 5 states in Malaysia, running about 50 ambulances nationwide. Yeah.
All right. So thank you, Mr. Ridwan. So, okay, we have come to our main agenda of the day. So the discussion of the 5G in the healthcare industry. So there are 3 main questions to discuss by our panel members who will take turns to share their opinion. First, I would like to invite Puan Shirin. So what is your opinion on empowering the Malaysian healthcare industry workforce? Is boosting digital skills is the answer? Please.
Okay. To answer that, of course it is. When we are talking about lifelong learning, it's about changes, and change is the one who drives learning. So change imposes the gap between what is now and what needs to be, what it was and what should be. And in order to tackle that, learning can actually bridge the gap and challenge the status quo. It alleviates in some point the uncertainties and ambiguities. But on the other hand, it is actually giving us a tool to empower our employees and giving them the chance to influence the future, provided that we provide that platform for them. Management should consider to have digital transformation upskilling program for the employees, whereby employees can actually volunteer to be part of the program. And the reward for this program should be certification, because I feel that once employees do volunteer and they get certified for it, more likely they will adapt to those changes internally, and they will adapt to their work process as well. So it's better to create that drive into them rather than forcing it into them. And these generations are already known to be very much influenced by mobile technologies. I don't think that changes are so much, impossible. It is possible. It's just a way to make them think that it is good for them as well to go into this direction. Yeah.
So thank you, Ms. Nazim, for your thoughts. So how about you, Mr. Ridwan? Do you think boosting digital skills could make the workers and the industry more powerful?
I'm sorry, what did you call me again?
Sorry, Mr. Sorry.
I was like,
I'm sorry.
right answer.
Yeah, I was confused.
Sorry. So I will repeat my question. So how about you, Mr. G? So do you think boosting digital skills could make the workers and also the healthcare industry more powerful?
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, anyway, I go straight to the point. I like to give a bit more on the ground operational kind of answer. Obviously the answer is yes. And I think to say yes, we need to see why yes, right? Okay, first of all, what differentiates our Asian healthcare and then American healthcare system or UK healthcare system is actually how much advanced they are. When we say advanced they are, what do you mean by that? It's not just doctors are able to operate better, do surgery better. It's also the information technology being used inside there actually, right? Now we all know public healthcare it's not sustainable on its own. It needs assistance from private healthcare, insurance industry, and so on. Okay. To put it in a nutshell, for all these various industry pillars to work together, you need technology to enable them to become as a platform. That requires our workers. I don't say workers, sounds like laborers. Our most precious staff, right? Workforce, right? We need them to be upgraded. Now you can use some big buzzwords, IR 4.0, technology, 5G. But the truth is data. Another is data. So for the data to be shared among all these pillars, right? You need this workforce to know how to use systems and technologies and software. So obviously we got to upskill them. I can go into details, but I'll stop for now. That's all.
So good point, Mr. G. So thank you.
Mr. G.
I'm sorry. So would you like to comment, Ms. Shirin, how far do you believe digital skills are key to an empowered healthcare industry workers? Please.
I thank you. Aiman, I think definitely the answer, as I said, I agree with the two panelists. Definitely, it's a yes. The question is how. When you talk about empowering the healthcare workers, empowerment is a big word. And you're talking about boosting digital skills. Would that be enough to empower them? You could give them all the training, you could give them all the skills, but I think the key thing is that you have to look at the whole ecosystem as well. If the ecosystem is not enabling them to actually be empowered in terms of deploying the digital skills that they have into their day-to-day servicing of the patients, servicing the as caregivers or people at the hospital, it's not going to work. Another thing is that it also depends on the actual customers. You're talking about, let's say the payers, you're talking about the patients, do they feel that do they have the awareness and do they feel that they need to use all these technologies, etc. So for me, yes, the answer is yes. You have to give them digital skills boost for the healthcare workers, but it's not just them. It's the whole ecosystem needs to be able to enable them and also to empower them for them to be effective and efficient in their task.
So very interesting point, Ms. Shirin. So next, I would like to invite Mr. Ridwan from First Ambulance. So Mr. Ridwan, Are you with us? Oh,
Yes.
okay. So, Mr. Ridwan, what can you say about the importance of competency in digital skills for the industrial healthcare workforce? Thank you.
Thank you, Ayman, for the question. So I guess the competency here is very important. Now, maybe before that, I could probably share why digital skills is important in our organization. So we at First Ambulance, we manage a few parts of the pre-hospital care. We are a private ambulance provider. So we're not an NGO or we're not with the government or anything. So it is fueled by the needs of the market. Now in First Ambulance, we have our command center operation. We have our ground operations where they day in, day out, meet patients, meet clients at the hospital, and they actually assess patients. So digital competency here will be very important when it comes to I think like what Mr. Saravanan was saying, that to be that kind of data-driven organization, the enablers or the staff, right? Or if maybe I can call them the enablers needs to have certain skill or competency to ensure the system or the process that the organization put in place. For example, you can collect data from the patient, you can have a system that is centralized where an oversight is built to ensure supervision at all levels is there. But of course, at the end of the day, the information from the enablers that is communicating to the patient, that is communicating to the clients, are inputted properly. They understand the function, they understand the purpose of us having set up such systems, and then the whole ecosystem of this digital can work. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ridwan. So, and also for the last one, can Mr. Zulkifli from OSA Technology share your thoughts on our first question?
I think the panelists dah mention. Memang the answer definitely yes. Tapi like Mr. G said, yeah, the first thing that we need to do is cari apa itu the gap analysis. Apa yang kekurangan antara like others dengan yang dekat Malaysia lah, apa yang kekurangan kita sekarang ni. That's all.
So great points from all our panelists. So now let's move on to our next question. So for the second question, so how do you view to 5G or not to 5G in exploring the digital buy-in trend of Malaysian healthcare companies? So I will now open the floor to any of the panelists members to comment upon. Anyone can please feel free to comment.
Okay, open floor.
Yes, open. It's like a discussion.
Okay.
Do you want?
Sure, I can
Okay.
give some. No one else
Yes, Mr.
started.
Reynolds, okay.
Okay, first of all, there's no, how can I say, there's no contest to 5G or not to 5G. It's not an option. We definitely have to progress. In fact, I would like to share that exactly 10 years ago, there's a project funded by MCMC, which I implemented for Makota Medical Center in Malacca. That is for 4G. It is to implement, to see patients most of the time, once they're done with the surgery or procedure, they are on the bed in the hospital, especially private sector hospital. They are occupying the bed, only receiving some medication, some water and so on. Usually it's more profitable as well as good for the hospital operation if to clear the bed, send the patients home earlier. But you can't do that because hospitals, doctors need to monitor the patients. But this monitoring is no rocket science sebenarnya. So thank you to MCMC was funding about 37 patients medical care. We actually send the patient back home earlier, but we monitor the patient as if they are in the hospital by putting gadgets, but of course using 4G. So we had the wireless weighing scale, glucometer, blood pressure meter, ECG watch, and everything. All right. So that was the question again, to 5G or to 5G, right? So kalau masa 4G pun kita dah start gunakan technology to clear the bed faster, operation make it easy and so on. Obviously, right now we should do it. But there's a huge but there. Actually, as far as the industry is concerned, everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon. Everybody wants to kickstart and start using it. Tetapi, the real question is, is the ecosystem ready or not? See, whether to say the ecosystem ready or not, it's not just a matter of hospitals wants to start using or patients wants to start using. There's a legal framework needed. There is a SOP needed. There is data sharing framework needed. There's a cybersecurity factor needed. So there's a huge, regardless of technology, there's a huge change management needed actually. So those are the factors. Before I take up too much of time, I allow others to contribute.
Can I? Yeah, I mean, I'm from MCMC.
Oh, thank you.
I'm Sunny. MCMC have just created a new sector. We call it as industry development. Currently, we're focusing a bit more on digital healthcare. I concur to the point that you have highlighted, but somehow or other, I wanted to understand a little bit more. We understand about ecosystems and all. I mean, we totally understand this is business, but we wanted to also understand what are the impacts of standards when you come into digital healthcare in terms of 5G, because we understand that 5G is not meant for human to human, right? 4G is meant for human to human. That's why you can see a lot of WhatsApp, Netflix, and all, spin-off. But for 5G, it's meant for device to device, right? Because the protocol can carry more communication from device. That's why healthcare is one of the target areas that we're trying to understand. But as you rightfully said, there's a lot of things that is needed, legal framework and all this. But we wanted to understand a bit more, where do we start? Because all of these are big components we're talking about. Legal framework is one massive thing itself on its own. But even before we go there, we wanted to understand how and what kind of impact that standards in between, if you can imagine, all of these medical devices comes with their own standards that's approved by MDA.
Yeah.
Correct? So we wanted to understand from 5G, right? How does it impact standards in terms of all of these devices? Because that can then be a benchmark before we look into, example, legal framework, example, SOP, because some form of baseline must be established.
Yeah.
Can I just?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's interesting that, we just, what Mr. G mentioned just now, I think I couldn't agree more. But, it's interesting that, sorry, siapa tadi nama from MCMC?
Sunny.
Ni terus jump into the, the standards and everything. But
Sure,
I guess,
thanks, Sunny.
sorry?
No, thank you. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So what in my head was that, it's more important. I know it's device to device, but it's more important to still look at the beneficiaries that's going to be, getting the full, how would I say, advantage of having 5Gs, for example, the 5G technologies, for example. Like let's say we talk about providers, right? Hospital providers, talk about patients. We talk about insurance, who pays for these services, etc. So if you look into that again, the ecosystem. I mean, device to device, but what do patients need out of it? How do providers benefit from the 3G deployment and all these new devices and new technologies coming on board? I think that's more critical to address in order for us, before we come to the standards, because unless we understand the effect, the need to have it, and the benefit to have it, etc., it probably is hard to us to even think about, giving the baseline standards. I mean, I'm coming from that angle. This is a discussion, right? So that's what I'm looking at. So, for example, if you're looking into, let's say, the providers and the healthcare work, the patients getting the benefit from remote monitoring. Say on the remote monitoring, right? You're talking about someone with a coronary artery disease, or this could lead to heart attacks, right? So you need to monitor them. Now, if they don't come to the hospital, you don't get to monitor them. So you give them a device that can monitor them on that thing. Then I guess for that particular device, then you could look into a specific standard for it. But you can't, it's hard to generalize the standards for all the different devices, I think. But I think going back to what Mr. G is saying, the regulatory part, maybe regard to the privacy, the data protection, because as patients, I mean, as much as I'm pro device and all this remote monitoring, I'm also concerned with my privacy and data. So that's another angle other than the standardization of standards with devices and MDAs.
Yeah, I think.
Pick up.
Okay, sure.
Okay, I'll pick up from where Shireen just left out, right? So Shireen, the fact that you are worried about your data privacy is exactly the reason why you need standards. Because once you have assured standards, case in point, everybody knows about HIPAA, HIPAA, Healthcare Information Portability and Accountability Act. This is nothing but a legal framework in the US, but it's so well done that everybody uses that. Now, I was shocked when I went to Qatar, Middle East. I spent 3 years there, ministry. The Ministry of Health in Qatar uses HIPAA as the benchmark. Even in Malaysia, even though it's not a legal system, we try to refer to that. So standards like that will give patients like Shireen an assurance that my healthcare data now, even though it's being shared from hospital A to hospital B, it is secure.
Thank you.
I'll really quickly touch on. Okay, sorry. You want to say something?
No worries. I mean, I think before also, Mr. Dean, before you go there, maybe we can share some real life applications that we have used when it comes to technology. So at first, ambulance, before even 5G came to the picture, we have started with smart ambulance initiative, where our ambulances are all Wi-Fi enabled. So we have established together with IDN, the National Heart Institute, a kind of we call it a kind of STEMI program. Basically, the program allows public to have access to what do you call this? To a command center. Basically, now with 4G, we were able to connect the patient to the institute. So whenever, say, you have a heart attack, and then you call our IDN heart attack number, which is manned by our command center, and then the command center then goes on site, assess the patient, and then we send the ECG back to the hospital, right? Triggering an alarm to all the specialists. So then the specialist then diagnose it as a heart, having a heart attack or not. So if it is, then the interventional team at IDN actually starts a CAT lab. So before the patient arrives, the CAT lab and the process is already started, and that allows us to cut the door to ballooning time by an average to 45 minutes here in Malaysia. So 5G, even with 4G, the technology application has profound impacts in community. You can improve survival rates. You can help, allow data to be shared earlier. I think Shireen also mentioned about monitoring. With 5G now, you can actually, have telemetry, live patient monitoring back to the hospital or specialist. So and guidance, right? Telemedicine can also be applied to the medics. So the medics in the ambulance or the hospital or the primary care or the care where we're going to send the patient can actually see what's happening from the patient from point A to back to the hospital. So the whole process can be monitored. Of course, 5G is an infrastructure that is developing, and it depends on areas now. But the idea is that the trend and the application will kind of follow through. So it is probably, if I can give an example, in the earlier days when you had a what we call it, stethoscope, right? A lot of physicians didn't even want to use the device, right? Because it's something new. Why would a physician want to use a stethoscope? Now it's like every other, even medical assistant, nurses use a stethoscope. So I guess it's also something that will follow up together with trend and cultures as the application grow and becomes more significant. Yeah.
I'd like to add on that. I think that we have to start somewhere rather than worrying on, like what would be the SOP, this and that, because I feel that the benefits outweighs all the risks involved. For example, what happens in Singapore, I think they're moving so fast compared to Malaysia. So what happened is in Singapore, they have this cloud system that stores information of patients. And that is being shared across all the hospitals and clinics in Singapore. So patients can actually visit without having any cuts, anything with them, just go there. Everything is done online via mobile. Registration, payment, collecting medicines are done there. And medicines can actually be sent over to their house. And then these apps actually sends reminders on the intakes, as well as the next appointment, as well as even having engagement on how are they feeling, how are they healing, this and that. So I think rather than focusing on the other spectrum, why not focus on the benefits first so that we get the thing across the board?
Before I touch back, Mr. Sunny, what you mentioned, I want to share a very sad story.
Okay.
Firstly, 20 years ago, I started using healthcare information system in Malaysia. I started with the Columbia Asia. So when I first started, I was comparing our technology, our ecosystem with Singapore, obviously. That is 20 years ago. Sadly, since 3 years ago, we cannot compare Singapore anymore. And sadly, I've started comparing ourselves with Jakarta, Indonesia. They are our benchmark now, actually. You know why? 5 years ago, Pak Jokowi has started a project, a huge national project for national insurance. It means that anybody on the street who can't afford private healthcare can now have access to private healthcare. This is funded by the whole country. We are not there yet, actually. The closest we have is Pakeso, but that's a different topic altogether. So my point here is that we can't compare the IHIS project in Singapore. I got friends who are there in the project, and they're also sucking our brain, by the way. I got a lot of guys here who are very good in Malaysia, in healthcare technology, are no longer in Malaysia. This is better down there in the south. So they are there. That's a different problem altogether.
Yeah.
It's a very sad story. Going back to what Mr. Sunny was saying, right? So your question was, how does standards impact the devices which are being brought in?
No, it's like, how does the 5G technology is going to impact, right, from a standard point of view?
Okay. Okay, this is my opinion. I'm going to come from a very high level perspective. First of all, we all know healthcare means hospital, clinics, pharmacies at most, and physiotherapy center and so on. With 5G, we will, not just with 5G, after 5G onwards, we will have a new institution providing healthcare. Okay, the spelling is, bear with me, HOUSEPITAL. Can you spell that out?
Hospital.
I repeat that again. HOUSE, house, rumah, PITAL. Now, I think you can imagine what it means. Okay, it may sound funny right now, but what it means is this. In a very similar way, during COVID-19, for all our children, right? The school left the physical building and entered your home. Our children were in the house, what, 6 months, 1 year? Some of them are still there, in fact, those who are scared about COVID-19, right?
Yeah.
The same way, healthcare is going to leave the physical building and enter your home. And this is proven time and time.
Yes.
And I'm quite close, thanks to Qatar, I'm quite close to NHS program in the UK. NHS is unable to fund the hospital healthcare anymore. So they rather used to say that filter your patient at the primary care so that they don't enter the secondary care. And worse, we don't want them to enter the tertiary care at all. Now they're saying, don't even let them enter primary care. Let them be at their home. Let's provide their care at home. And to answer your question, standards is going to play such a crucial role,
Exactly.
making sure hospital comes into play. Now, before I allow others, I can go into lists one by one. HIPAA 27001, so many MD other standards, which is supposed to govern device per device now.
Exactly.
But that's where we're making a mistake, because we are looking at every device has its own standard separately. But no, we need a wholesome standard which enables data sharing, not just from data security point of view, but for example, ANT plus. This is a Garmin watch. If you take, you terbalikkan, you will see the standard. That is for data sharing, actually. So it impacts directly, and I think it should be localized. Our issue is we're depending too much on external foreign standards, which are not applicable to our tanah tumpah.
Exactly. Thank you, Mr. G. We share the same view, because we know that it's a global trend that healthcare is moving closer to communities, right? I think your hospital makes perfect sense.
Not mine. It's a global trend.
Correct. Whatever that you mentioned.
But it's new in Malaysia.
Correct. So that's why as a regulator, we're trying to understand a bit more, right? what kind of, yeah, again, I'm just paraphrasing. We're just trying to understand what kind of impact, because by the time that this become proliferated, there'll be multiple devices, there'll be multiple practices, right? That's going to go into hospital, right? That's what we just wanted to learn, right? We have in Malaysia itself, which I agree, localization. In Malaysia itself, there are several industries that we have seen that it is innovation led, right? And it is user led. So that have somehow or other create some form of issues down the road. Example, point in case is example fintech, right? It was purely an innovation drive, right? So issues like regulation, the mindset of fintech is not about regulation. The mindset of fintech is actually about innovation. 20 years down the road, scam happens, data leakages happen, a lot of problems happen, right? Money go lost and all this and that. Worst case scenario that could happen in fintech industry, which is innovation led, which is less regulation. I understand Bengara is in the picture. I was there during the discussion, but at worst case scenario, money is lost. We can't afford that in healthcare, because if anything happens, life is lost. That's why the triangle of digital, right? You have regulation, you have innovation, and then you have users, the beneficiaries, right? So that's why if you look into e-commerce industry, for example, it was users-led, because there's not that much, there is not much innovation that you want to talk about in e-commerce, because it's just buy and sell, it's just trade. Just put in payment, just put in platform, put in your products, logistics, buy and sell, done. So it was users-led. Again, regulation last. You have a lot of data leakages issues right now. Again, worst case scenarios that could happen in e-commerce, you either you don't receive your product, or you got cheated. You see something red, but then you got something green, things like that, right? That's the worst thing that could have ever happened. But again, we're just trying to see, because I agree with your point, because we got to start somewhere. I agree as well with the point that there's a lot of framework that needs to be done and all this and that. But where do we start? It's such a big industry that we're trying to build. There's a lot of research from McKinsey's, Bain, BCG's talking about these are all multi-trillion dollars business. But if we were to localize it from a local context, we don't share the same flavors with whatever reports that we are reading, right? Because they have different, lack of better words, standards, because the practice back there is different from what we are practicing, right? Because it's about localization. That's why I wanted to understand deeper, right? What kind of implications, what kind of impact that standards could bring? On the surface, we understand, right? It's like you have this like HIPAA and plus and all this, fine, great, but how do we tweak this, right? Because there's localization aspects, like what you mentioned. So
I think Shireen already started answering just now. She said that you can have all the standards, but what's relevant is what's the users, what's the actual case study. So you can start with use cases. For example, pick your battle. You can't solve everything. You can't have framework, security for everything. Impossible. Start with things like which are already being practiced. Remote patient monitoring, for example. What standards are needed to enable remote patient monitoring? For example, then you can go for telesurgery. What standards do we need for telesurgery to happen? Case in point, you said 5G is for machine to machine, right? Actually, in telesurgery, it's still human to human sebenarnya. But because you are using machine, the doctors using machine, you need both human and machine interaction. So pick your fight, pick the use cases, pick the cases, pilot drive it. MCMC will be, I mean, you guys will be are great and pilot driving. You guys did the same, many years ago.
Okay.
So Miss Malini, I'm sure she's still there driving it, right?
Yep.
So yeah, so pick your cases and then apply the appropriate standards and then grow from there, strength to strength. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to add on that. Sorry, someone? Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry, I'm Azira, part of Dr. Amy's team too. I think maybe Zulkifli can agree with me that if talking about healthcare, MDA will come with a huge role, means that there are bodies that are going to be
Also painful.
that's the thing.
Very painful.
Because I'm also working closely with MDA these days, because they are, of course, I understand term of one of industry that MDA kind of like, sorry to use the word like pain in the ass, like try to stall everything and so on. But don't you worry that having the standard regulations set up before the innovation happen that can actually limit
Who you want to answer? Mr. Sunny, the MCMC guy, or the industry guy?
I'm here just to listen.
Because for me, I'm more against to Mr. Srin because like you need to start first to see the success, and also maybe of course we're gonna face some of the limitation too by the thing, and then the regulation should come in play around. But if you say a regulation is come to play around, I maybe they are going to be affected. They're going to be hindering of implementing the 5G because people are going to just think that it's just difficult to use it. Just go back to the paper-based system, for example, like that.
Even though I say MDA is painful, but I got to agree. Mr. Sunny already answered your question just now. Because healthcare is mission critical, mission critical, human life, so it is mission critical, E-commerce, at most, you lose money. In healthcare, you lose life, actually. And there's a huge liability cost. For example, telesurgery. Why standards important? You can have remote physicians outside of Malaysia performing surgery. Who's liable? If you don't have the framework, who do you blame? Who do you catch? Insurance industry will not pay for anything. So the summary is very simple. You need to have standards, regulations, framework, SOP, whatever you call it, right? In order to enable the industry to safely adopt. Otherwise, healthcare will never adopt. I mean, everybody knows. I'm sure all of us knows still a doctor who still use pen and paper. Why? Yeah. For 20 years, all I've been doing is trying to remove the pen and paper. Tak boleh sampai sekarang. Anyway, I think you want to say something.
Sharin, you wanted to say something.
But no, because for me, I think the most important thing is for us to be smart in selecting we're talking about the cases, the services, look at what most needed now. For example, COVID has sort of, showed us the way and expedited the needs for all these, technologies to come together. So when we're talking about standards, Sunny, maybe we can start off with things like predictive and preventative treatments. Things that are not necessarily in the hospital, but things that are needed in the hospital. Just because I think the people in industry, especially I guess Mr. G, you would know that in the hospitals there are a lot more standards required because there are a lot more liabilities to the hospital, to the doctors, to the caregivers, etc. Right? So perhaps if you want to start fast and you want to start sooner rather than later, and you want to be more efficient and effective, against, like, for example, NHS, more effective than NHS. I'm sorry, I mean, NHS is trying to not let people to come to primary care, but they are not doing the best job at it. I'm currently in London, and so that's one of the cases. I mean, whenever we talk to NHS, yes, they want to ideally push everyone to be in the hospital, but they haven't enabled things in the hospital. So I think, and now I'm using hospital a lot more than Mr. G, but and currently it's 3 o'clock in the morning in the UK, and if I wake up with a stomach ache, I would not get to see a GP for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and yet they're not enabling us to treat ourselves either. They're not enabling us to do anything. I mean, that's how it is.
And you can't even walk into emergency
no,
department
you can.
now, right?
They make you wait for 24 hours.
Yeah, and then apparently you must call, get a number, and then they must allow you to walk in.
111. That's a number. 111. But it's just the reality. If you want to expedite this, Sunny, that's one thing that we can look into the predictive, look into the preventative, and get the standards there maybe faster.
All right. Thank you.
Sure. Let me add one more thing. Now, while we are all getting excited with the word hospital, right? Actually, before primary care, like what since Shireen is there in UK, right? The home care services or the care home services there is actually I want to say excellent, but I can't say that because my father said they actually own 4 care homes there. They're also struggling, but they are at least doing some sort of justice to the system. I mean, they are doing something at least better than in Malaysia, for example. Do you guys know how many care homes we have in Malaysia? Care home maksudnya aging care. Okay, take a rough guess. Ada berapa care home kat Malaysia? Yeah?
10.
Tak, bukan lah 10, not so bad lah. Perspective, right? In the UK, 66 million people in the UK, they have got about 17,000 care homes.
Right.
66 million people in the UK, 17,000 care homes. In the US, for about close to 300 million people, they have got about 21,000 care homes. Okay? Tak banyak kan? Dekat Malaysia, for the 34 million people, 34 kan, last I checked, right? We have 350 care homes, 350 sahaja. That means to say our old folks, guys, right? They have got no choice but to walk into the emergency room, emergency department of the hospital. They will hog up everything. Can you imagine we have enough care homes and then we equip them with 5G technologies, which will enable remote patient monitoring, remote care, telemedicine, and so on. We can reduce the traffic into the emergency room, and the emergency room can be utilized for the actual trauma cases. I'm sure Mr. Ridwan will agree with me.
Yeah. But actually, if I can share something here as well, is that the idea in Malaysia you have pre-hospital care where ambulatory services you bring in patient into the ED. In other countries you have out of hospital care where you have a doctor or a GP or a specialist that actually go and treat a patient, and then you send him to a definitive care, right? So you actually don't have to send to an ED. But I think it's something like, so you gotta also look at it locally. So for example, if you're saying we do want to reduce, patients coming into the ED, ambulance services or pre-hospital care can play more roles as well. So hospital can be, the term hospital, not necessarily that you need with digital. I mean, with digital technologies, you allow more supervision. You don't actually need to be physically there. Of course, standards and practices need to be developed over time. But you can also deploy people to go on site and treat them, and then that care with a lot of all these digital healthcare apps, you can also see that supervision, the continuous care can be done at home and not, need to go to another center. So that supervision, that continuous healthcare can always also still be done. So I mean, there's a lot of ways, but of course, Mr. G will understand it better when it comes to liability and expertise. So a lot of models that we can look at in Malaysia. Yeah, sorry.
So thank you to all of our panelists for their amazing views. So before we move on to our next question, so Mr. Zulkifli, you want to add something or you can?
Okay, yang relate to puan cakap tadi pasal MDA. Kita memang dekat dalam Malaysia memang untuk healthcare industry tertakluk pada MDA. Semua equipment, semua device yang dibuat ataupun yang dipasarkan di Malaysia tertakluk pada MDA punya kelulusan. Saya cakap pasal kami punya pengalaman di mana kami memang pembuat manufacturer barang-barang medical dan kami juga innovate barang-barang baru. Untuk kami mendapatkan kelulusan MDA untuk barang-barang baru terutamanya hampir 3 tahun. 3 tahun untuk dapat kelulusan MDA. Itu belum sampai 5G punya tu lagi, baru mungkin 4G punya item lah.
It's bad, man.
3 tahun untuk dapatkan kelulusan.
They're laughing about Spain.
Yeah, of course.
Which is the ecosystem is not ready. Untuk dapatkan kelulusan daripada certified body, untuk kelulusan dapat daripada MDA itself memang lama. So I think the task force untuk ni memang terlalu banyak lah. Kena libatkan MDA juga.
Because I heard from the CEO, Dr. Hizan himself, easy for them to get approval from outside the country compared to our own MDA, which is that's the thing I'm worried that if the industry waiting for MDA to set up a legal or SOP, it's just gonna stop from the industry to to
In a
move
way,
forward,
yes,
to
betul.
move forward, to move to this. So should be a little bit balance of pilots.
Next thing we know, OSA technology move to Jakarta.
Already started already.
Alamak.
Wow.
Because when I talked to CEO, he said he kind of like frustrated with NDA. So I'm worried that they are like your hospital, the nurseries on the new hospital to be up soon. It's just I'm afraid that the innovators that you guys gonna like waiting for the correct legal, because I don't think it's gonna be the first draft gonna be the correct one or the exact SOP. So it's just gonna be the development phase by phase and phase. So yeah, so where I'm wondering if there is definitely gonna be factors for hindering for the adoption for the 5G in the industry sides.
Pardon me for my ignorance lah, because I'm not so very well versed in MBA punya ni lah, turf lah. Pardon me for that, but I just need to understand when you say that MBA equivalent lah dekat luar other countries lah, when they are faster, more efficient, I mean, is it because purely of time? Is it because of processes? Is it because it was taught? Pardon me, I just have to ask this.
The MBA I'm an MBA, but I'm also from Jalan, medical healthcare juga. So we deal with the MBA juga. So yes, your product 3 tahun our product about 5 years nak dapat approval. But MBA dia baru fully keluar akta tu I think during COVID kot. Tak ke masa during COVID?
Slightly before that, I think.
Slightly before. So we've been playing around with the content, and then funny thing is because we the hospital, we the manufacturer, we have to be certified by the certain standard ISO CE, right? So our auditor for CE is their consultant for MBA. So we ask kenapa lambat sangat semua, because they have to think overall tau. So daripada overall tu, sebab tu dia banyaklah kenapa lambat, kenapa susah berubah tu. Your question was apa tadi?
How is it different with other MDAs with other countries?
It's not different. They try to tally with the foreign punya. So they were like looking at the standard. Do we want to follow European CE standard or they want to follow FDA standard? So they like ding dong kat situ lama. So that's why they assign the consultant, the auditor like TV Randen, TUB Germany semua tu, just to say that what kind of standard they want to approach. So if let's say the product, macam if let's say you say you want to go for 5G yang boleh somehow get CE certified somewhere else, most likely easier for you to get along with MDA.
Oh, so means you got to get approval from other countries so that it can
I mean, that's my
so it's a
mindset
benchmarking method lah.
I'll just give some opinion. I don't have a lot of experience in devices. I have recently some experience with Damansara 2, KPJ, in some devices. So yes, MD was painful. But with my little experience with FDA, sebenarnya FDA pun sama juga sebenarnya. Equally painful or even worse. Okay. And in fact, I can share something. Dekat Malaysia, software, medical software is not regarded as a device yet. Have you perasan that or not? Dekat US, kan? It's a software. Walaupun software, it's considered have to get approval for FDA.
Because it's for healthcare use.
It's for healthcare, medical, mission critical, life-saving use. So in that sense, guys, you still have a bit of loophole, utilize it. But you still can.
But I keep searching on FDA, the point of view, and also the MBA. But yes, betul. Memang FDA tu, although there are a lot of like process on, but it's much more easier to.
I think what they've done, they have declassified. I mean, they've classified to multiple categories. Whereas MBA is a catch-all.
That is, they already categorize it, but in each category there are additional processes that, of course, in the point of view of industry, I think they keep questioning why the additional processes, which incur a lot of charges and so on. So yeah, because I'm really surprised when CEO say it's much more easy to get approval from Korea, and then Malaysia buy from Korea.
Ouch.
From the innovator from Malaysia. So again, I'm worried that if industry wants to wait for the proper, maybe it's gonna hinder in the term of adoption.
It will.
But then when you this this conversation is all about devices and software and this and that. But why don't we start with even patient flow? Like we have first ambulance here. What I learned from case studies overseas is that prior to ambulance reaching the hospitals, and they can just buzz out and say, do you have extra room? Do you have extra what? This is certain type of patient that needs urgency, this and that. And if the hospital decline, then they can reroute to somewhere else. Then we can start with that. And even we can start with patient flow. We can start with patient experience, a simpler ones, maybe finance even. I agree with one of the comment that says 5G is not just devices. It is also other spectrums. It also involves sales. It involves the non-technical assistance in hospital settings.
To pick your use cases. Go from strength to strength. Do the simple one first.
Yeah.
I agree.
So thank you to all our panelists. So it will be a long discussion for this topic. So let's move on to our last question. So the last question is, so what are your suggestions on advancing healthcare workforce capacity building in the post-COVID-19 era? So it is. So I also open anyone to comment for this question or the suggestion. So anyone who wants to share your suggestion?
Start first.
Okay. Yes. Please.
3 words. Education. 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 I'm a local grad from UTM Skudai. Okay. I'm still close with my lecturers and so on. Until now, other than IMU, I'm not sure about your university. Sorry? Okay, no, I mean your current university which you're lecturing at, right? I'm not sure whether they have a complete program or not, but most local universities do not have and probably do not recognize healthcare information technology, where 5G and HIS and EMR as a prominent subject to be taught. Okay, only IMU, I know, thank you to our Tan Sri Abu Bakar before, as well as Professor Dr. J. Mohan. These are the 2 pioneers in the industry. They have inculcated IMU to have the syllabus. So definitely education is a must, because I can go on talking about why and what are the technologies and the data standards and so on. See, for us to have this discussion in this room, right? I'm sure we were not taught about 3G, 4G in healthcare when we were in the university. It is something that we picked up when we are working, we are innovating, we have ideas, we travel, we learn on our own and so on. But now, right now, that's not the case. In the other countries, educating healthcare technology is a part of the university syllabus. There are courses there. But in Malaysia, I do not see that. Even the private universities, actually. I may be wrong, but if I'm wrong, please correct me. But in your program, which university is that? That's why I was interested when you said that healthcare technology. I'm very interested. And there should be more, how can I say, industry discussion, adoption, because as far as industry is concerned, kita tak dapat workforce yang memang graduate from healthcare technology. So education is so important. Yeah, that's it. My first point.
So thank you, Mr. G. So Miss,
I would like to say that I think 2 lessons I learned from COVID is 1, resilience and inclusivity. At that point, when we hit COVID, we were lost. We didn't know how to react, but KKM came together with MySejahtera, having tracking of cases every day, broadcasting it on TV, on social media, and this and that. So without even having prior knowledge, we at that point know how to navigate and move forward, right? So I would say that starts with healthcare management first. See what are the gaps that is involved and how you can use data and technology to fix that gap, even internally as a process, then only move forward into the larger industry per se. So that's my thought.
so what about, yes, Mr. Ridwan?
Yeah, I always also wondered why Malaysia it's such a famous destination for patients from Indonesia, for example. They have a very good healthcare tourism here in Malaysia. So sometimes you wonder why is that. Although Indonesia is starting to be better, we do look to Indonesia in a lot of things, not only healthcare nowadays, which is unfortunate. But they are going to accept, but they're still lacking a lot of things. So sometimes in Malaysia, we did allow a transfer of knowledge. So doctors who were specialists from outside of Malaysia to come in and then teach that to our to Malaysians, and then they practice. So we had developed that skill over time, and so we have a pool of talents that people actually can I think can rely on. So coming to this, I don't know whether we should kind of open up to allow some kind of talent from outside that has that knows how to use technology in healthcare when it comes to specialists or GPs or nurses or medical assistants, or even of course paramedics. Allow them to come in and show locals that this is actually a standard. Start the trend, start the culture to be adapted together in the country. I mean, we have done this before and we've seen the benefits. Maybe it's something that we can also look at. Other than, yes, we look outwards. We also want to adapt to the growing industry, but maybe we could, also bring some people here. And for example, that I think that some of the challenges with being digital is mainly people who are already experienced, they are really specialized, they know what they've been doing is correct, but as technology develops, there's more and better application that can be applied, but they've not seen that, they have not seen or experienced that. Maybe we can bring in people who have that experience and share it here, and then further develop the market. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Ridwan. So can we proceed to Mr. Zulkifli?
Yeah, like Mr. G said, education. Sebab dalam ada survey yang dijalankan during that COVID times, 51% daripada workforce yang ada initiative dia orang sendiri untuk belajar, untuk adapt dan juga untuk keluar daripada ni. So I think macam yang Puan cakap tadi, kita kena reward dia lah. Kena reward dan kena keep education tu kena upgrade selalu. That's for me.
So, and the last one from Madam Shirin, anything that you want to add?
I think that to build the capacity, sebenarnya education is critical. But the thing is, the awareness from the users is also very important. Bagi I, kalau even though let's say for example kan, our doctors our doctors, our nurses, our healthcare providers, they are all how would I say hands on. I mean, they're all well trained on all these new technologies, new gadgets and stuff like that. But if the recipients, the patients, the people who are supposed to be, in the house and taking care of themselves are not aware about this, it wouldn't work. So I think that's one thing I just want to add. The capacity building, yes, it's important, but I don't want it to be like, for example, now at one point I think SOCSO offer berapa ratus ribu, 400 ribu free mammogram screening for women to go, to go and get checked up, and only 10% taken up. Why? Bukan dia kena bayar pun. Because all this awareness are not in the community. So empowering and building the capacity for the healthcare workers is great, but how are we educating? The education is in this side, or the side of the fence. How are we educating them? How are we creating awareness to them? So that again, it will actually drive the needs, and also how would I say, motivate the healthcare workers to learn more and to do more. So otherwise, it's a vicious cycle. Jadi dia tak orang kata apa, it won't take off and it won't be effective and efficient.
Alright. So great point. So how about the audience? Do you want to add something? So no one. So perhaps we have question from Dr. Minatul to our panelists. Let's hear from Dr. Minatul.
Okay, I don't have much questions, too many questions, because I don't want to lead discussion. I love seeing everyone so fast and furious when it comes to, imparting their opinions and views. I just want to know, so far in the context of your organization, what is the extent of talent competency of the healthcare workforce when it comes to digital skills?
And can you recommend any critical skills that the university can focus on? Because we are the educators and we provide education, training, and so on. But there are so many skills, you know? So what should we focus on? Maybe you can suggest to us
Okay.
any critical
I
areas.
can start first. Of course, being a hospital, we employ various demographics of workforce, right from the most intelligent consultants who 20, 30 years experience up until the normal data entry person, right? For any of this category, the basic computer skills is obviously important. And I'm talking about the nurses and so on. Most of the time, they are not well versed, right? They are not exactly well versed. They have some experience, Microsoft Office and so on, but that's just number one, computer skills. Beyond that, they should see there are various standards. Even now, even though I'm saying that Malaysia is lagging behind, there are already standards which are put into place. There are coding standards, drug coding, procedure coding, disease coding, ICD-10, ICD-9, so the various coding. It's very beneficial for this workforce to understand this coding because this will also help them to upgrade themselves actually in the future. But no doubt when they come into the hospital, they do have the skill. So we have our own training program, right? Some of them have taken the next step. Some of you may know something called the RPA, Robotic Process Automation. They've actually tried to learn this themselves actually. It's a bit of programming. And for those who are interested, we brought them more training. So these are some of the skills which they should adopt, if you ask me.
Thank you. Robotic skills, coding, anything else?
Software development.
Software development. Any intangible skills that you feel important? Because the digital CV students I have right now, I'm not really concerned about their
Technical skills.
Yes, technical skills, because they do show, most of them, passion.
Okay.
And they do practice self-learning. If you just mention some kind of software, I'm sure in the class, one or two would be like even more of an expert compared to the lecturers. However, in terms of their soft skills, in terms of their passion, in terms of their interest, I think there's still uncertainty. Maybe because of the environment and the ecosystem. This is not really an interesting time for youngsters to enter the healthcare industry, I have to say. So there's a lot of concern, anxiety that maybe the industry players can help to communicate better to our students. What are the attractions, or what are the benefits, and I would say why should they spend their time and their talents in the healthcare industry? And you can offer to them.
See, we can talk about technical skills. There's a whole bunch of technical skills, but I think if you get them to be interested to learn, right, to read. See, this reading skill is actually missing and going away from our community. And maybe this is not just for healthcare technology, it's actually any industry.
Yeah.
People don't read nowadays. People don't even search. I heard people just go to TikTok and just search and just view YouTube and so on. And the attention span is also becoming lesser and lesser. I think everybody knows this by now. This is a worrying trend, even in my own house, So I really inculcate reading skills. And from there, right, they should be more curious to learn how healthcare is performing in other countries. So they can compare, they can learn. Okay. And because the youngsters have a lot of time in their hand. That's the number one benefit they have. Use the time accordingly, learn new stuff. We can't actually tell them what to learn. Because when you go to the internet, there's so many things to learn. So when they learn, when they read, they can come with ideas. So when they go to the employers, give the employers new ideas. Like myself, I have about 25 staff reporting to me right now, my IT department. I would really encourage them to actually read on their own, come to me with ideas. So RPA is one of my own IT staff. He came up with the idea, why can't we automate tasks? So report, which is taking about 6 hours now, is taking about half an hour. Thank you to this one guy. So yeah, encourage them to learn.
Okay, great. In our next session, actually, we invited an industry player from the e-book portal platform. So I think that it would be a good question to pose to him, in continuance from this discussion. Okay, the last question for me. So I did recall about equal opportunity or equal access to 5G technology which I think is quite challenging because 5G favors those who are in the city, who are located in the city. So 5G as a connection or roll out or deployment would favor those living in greater Klang Valley, right? So what are your views on safeguarding equal access and utilization of 5G technology in your industry?
I don't intend to I don't intend to answer, but I just wanted to provide some input. Because somehow or other I disagree with certain portion of the statement of the question. We don't see that as a statement to say that it is urban first and rural last. That's not the intention of 5G. The whole intention of the DNB saga was created because we wanted to ensure that all of this is cut across. That's all. That's all I wanted to say.
Point taken, point taken.
Yeah.
I'm just, igniting the fire because
Sure.
I think in healthcare, traditionally, urban health would be superior than rural health. So is that going to be similar when it comes to 5G when implemented in healthcare? Is it going to be the same old story? Or maybe 5G is going to be the great leveler of equal opportunity and equal
I like this question. I like this.
for everyone?
Or it's gonna increase the gap between the urban and also rural.
Want to decrease the
But when we are talking about 5G technologies, right, there's other things that also come into play, which is one, knowledge itself. Knowledge of those who are practicing and will be using that technology. Number two, we are talking about the devices itself. Are the device that we have, for example, in Klinik Kesihatan in Baling, for example, are they capable in handling 5G? May not be, right? So I think it's supply and demand. Of course, the city will be the first one to take up this, but it will catch on like what we had last time. Unify took so long to reach Kedah, but it's somewhere there, now it's there. So it's like that. I feel that it's supply and demand. It will get there whenever and the demand is there.
Yes. Bishri, you want to add something? Or okay.
My understanding of the basic, my understanding of the basic is correct. But 5G ni tahu idea ni enabler. It will enable more efficient data transfer, the speed, I'm talking about the speed is like perhaps 100 times faster, you're talking about low latency, you're talking, maknanya it is still an enabler, it's a macam highway, tahu. Maknanya kalau kita talking about nak buat, let's say lah, you're not talking about the devices and I think of course, it's ideal if the device is 5G compatible. But what I'm saying is that if you are talking about, empowering the community, whatever, it can start now, even before the full 5G is being rolled out. For example, how many of us in this conference has a 5G enabled phone? But kita tak ada lagi pun 5G. Tapi the best part is the marketing hype. They will say, 5G phone, 5G phone. So essentially kita nampak 5G ni ada potential and it will enable a lot of things to be more efficient, more cost effective, more speedy for more effective in terms of monitoring, etc. But at the end of the day, kita jangan tunggu 5G. That's my point that I'm trying to get it. We develop what we can develop for the whole ecosystem. And in the anticipation that the 5G will reach us soon. I think that's how we should look at it. Cik Sani, kalau kita nak tunggu semua satu Malaysia 5G, saya rasa tak.
8 tahun kemudian lah.
5G dah turun lah.
Now they're talking about 5.5G, by the way. Yeah, I agree with you, Puan Shirin. Yes, totally agree.
Because I think we paid a little attention to some of the comments and questions posted on the chat box. Maybe we can revisit some of them. I think the first one from Srina, who wanted to ask, when we say 5G, does this mean to modernize the whole flow, including patient experience, finance system, AI, less human interaction, or what exactly? Yeah, I think this was answered by the panel just now. So it's a whole ecosystem. It covers pretty much everything. And a few more from Dr. Nizam. Collection of use cases as a good starting point to see the direction of focus. And for your information, that is what we are doing. My team are conducting a study on, and we are collecting use cases for the healthcare, not only for the healthcare industry, but for all 7 verticals. And this forum is just one of the process of collecting and making a roadmap of all the use cases. So the last one about data governance practice among healthcare providers. Anyone wants to comment or have any idea on
Just quick comment on that. Actually, the question is about what is the data governance practice among healthcare providers for 5G? But you cannot just say data governance for 5G, because 5G is a replacement of your network cable, for example. So it can be 6G, 7G, doesn't matter. But we have data governance. Okay, for example, bukan MCMC. There's another organization, MMC. Okay, MMC has come up with, MMC is actually the council where all the doctors have to get their license number from in Malaysia under MOH. So they have come up with the governance on how data EMR should be kept if it's ever using soft copy. If besides paper, right, how EMR data should be kept. So there's governance from there. MOH not so much. And then we have, of course, the 27001, ISO 27001. But all of this doesn't focus on 5G. It just says if you use electronic media, if you're transmitting the data, anyhow, thumb drive, 3G, 4G, 2G, doesn't matter. Yes, there are governance there, but not so much on 5G alone.
Yeah.
True. Okay. So any more questions from the online audience? If not, actually we are running way out of time. Almost an extra hour because of technical glitch at the beginning of the session, and also a very fruitful discussion. So I return the platform to our moderator.
So since we are running out of time, so thank you to all of our panelists for sharing viewpoints, expertise, and experience with us. So it has been engaging, fruitful, and constructive forum. So we are immensely grateful that you were able to give out some time out of your busy schedule to spend with us this morning. So with that, I would like to call upon Dr. Amatul Saadi Abdul Jamil to present the panelists with our sincere token of appreciation. So please.
In that case, perhaps we can end the meeting first.
Okay, yes.
So thank you everyone, to the audience, sponsoring Mr. Ridwan, and all the other guests who I cannot really mention because there's a lot of you. Thank you very much for attending, and hope to see you in other platforms. And we will email you with details, including certificates and feedback form later. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And nice meeting everyone.
Thank you.
Good discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting
Kok
us.
bahasa?